Are you looking for a way to scale your short-term rental business and buy more properties? Well, co-hosting might be the right fit for you. Welcome to the Cohost Coach podcast with Joe Roney. This episode of the Cohost Coach is brought to you by Savvy STR Agents. If you're looking to buy a short-term rental, then contact the STR Savvy Agent team at savvy.realty.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Cohost Coach. I am Joe Roney, and I have the honor today to be in the same room with the great Kim Fitzpatrick, who is a short-term rental owner, co-host, and the queen of install. So Kim, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me, Joe.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on. We actually first met in Bill's Accelerator program a couple years ago. And it was excellent. And then we got to meet in person last year. But I really want to know a little bit more of your history and what jumped you into the short-term rental space and how long have you been doing it?
Oh gosh. I think it's been 8 years now. And it's one of those things where you make lemonade out of lemons. I got divorced and I didn't have the same standard of living when I went back to teaching as I did when I was married. And I wanted my kids to have all of the things that they could have. So I thought, gosh, let me try this Airbnb thing out. I've heard a lot of things about it. And so I legit blew up a mattress in a spare bedroom of my house. And I started out with an air mattress and I welcomed guests through my own front door with my kids. And I got started that way.
Wow. That is actually really awesome. I mean, and that was really what the founding of Airbnb was really all about, was sharing that space. So, and you were in there really early on. So how long did it take you to actually purchase your first short-term rental that was not at your primary residence?
I just wanted to get a little extra income so I could put my kids in sports. And then I was like, oh gosh, this is paying half my mortgage. What if I get a real mattress? Oh gosh, this is paying most of my mortgage, this one room. And I just continued on that trend. So I think it was probably about a year and a half later that I bought a condo that was almost directly in my backyard.
Wow.
And I learned that way. And then it just grew from there.
Wow. And how many total do you own currently today?
Currently I own 3 short-term rentals.
Okay.
The number has fluctuated over the years and I've slowly, steadily increased, the value of the homes that I own, but 3 for now.
Yep. And that's plenty, especially with what you have going on. And then you did jump into co-hosting and you're still co-hosting some properties, right?
So no, I'm not co-hosting anymore. My business has taken off. And so I leave the co-hosting to people like you that just do a wonderful job.
Well, you did. I know you did co-host for a while because we had that conversation about it, and you had quite a few properties, and I remember you saying it wasn't your favorite part. You really enjoyed the install side.
Yeah, there's something about the short-term relationship that seems to work for me. Yeah, I don't envy you guys. Co-hosting is hard, tedious, grinding work at times, especially if you don't set it up real well. So
Yeah, I mean, I think any area of this industry, in the short-term rental industry, has its ups and downs. It has its days of stress, and it has its rewards, right? Just like what you're doing in your space now, as we discussed earlier. You're in a little bit of a stress situation at the moment before you jump into your next install, right?
yeah, I traded one type of stress for a different kind of stress, I suppose. But we each have our different flavors of stress that we enjoy, right?
Yep, and I agree. And I think that's one of the great things of about this business is there are so many different ways to be successful in this business, and you found your niche with the Launch Host, which is doing installs for short-term rental owners. So, what made you decide this is what I want to do? I want to start helping owners do this.
Well, I was a middle school and high school PE teacher for 17 years, and I quit that job during COVID when everybody went to the black box on the computer screen. And I was like, this is not a really viable way to teach PE. I don't feel like I'm contributing to the kids in the way that I would want. I'm out. And so then I felt like I would just take on co hosting and do that. But I am not set up. My personality isn't meant to be behind the laptop, like switching just like shocking the algorithm and whatnot. I need to be out in person, like doing things physically. And so then I just chose to go the install route. I was like, this is a need. I don't see anyone doing it. I feel like I could meet this need. I'm really great at rounding up the troops and getting them excited to do hard physical labor. That's very PE minded, right? And so we get in there and we set up properties in a way that we can hand them off to a co-host or an owner or a property manager, and they can start off on the right foot and really run and be successful that way.
Yeah, and I think it is such a huge thing. I mean, as a realtor in Panama City Beach and helping investors all the time, there are so many that jump into the space that, if they've never done it before or if they have full-time jobs, it's, how long is it going to take them to get set up? And, that 2, 3, 4 weeks or 6 or 8 weeks, whatever it may be, those are big carrying costs. And if you really weigh that to how much you can get done and get the property up in 7 days, and to me, it's a no-brainer if you're not someone that can go out and go down there and do the same thing.
Exactly. I talked to a lot of potential clients and I shared what we did and our pricing and one guy had this look of like shock and dismay and I was really worried that we were way out of his budget and he said, I spent at least 5 times that amount setting up my first property. I will never do it again. It took me so long. It was so stressful. It was so hard on my marriage. And I was like, well, that's what we're here for. We are saving marriages one property at a time.
Saving marriages, business partnerships, relationships, all of those things because, we've done some installs, so I know what it takes when you get into that. But when does the planning start? So if somebody contacted you today and they are closing on a house in 30 days, and you have availability, when does that planning start for you to help them get ready?
So I love to meet them as soon as they hear about me and understand what we can do. And really, ideally, what I tell them is when they are clear to close, is when they need to have found their designer, put down their deposit, get that design plan going so that on closing day, they can start shopping all of the things off of the design plan and if they are going to use us as the receiving team to gather the items and bring them in the house, then we need to be there like the day after closing. And that is going to shorten the timeline tremendously as far as getting a guest in the door quickly. So clear to close is the day that it needs to be really that ball needs to be in motion. So if I can meet them before clear to close and they can hem and haw and think and decide and then take action on that day.
Yeah, I think, that obviously makes sense. A lot of, as a realtor, I tell everyone, don't spend any money before you close, right? Especially if you're using funds. Now, if you have separate funds to go purchase stuff that's separate from what you need for your closing, that's fine. If you're extra wealthy and have a whole lot of extra money, no big deal. But for the average investor, we're putting most of what we have into this next property until it can start profiting. So it's really important not to spend any of those funds from your closing before closing because too many deals have fallen through that way. Have you had any deals like that have fallen through last minute that you ended up having to push back?
Yeah, I would say, well, I first of all, I don't want their money until they are closed.
Yes.
So, we like to work with people and I understand that. A designer might be a little bit different, but some of the designers I work with will take that deposit and if it doesn't work on this property, the people are obviously actively shopping for a property and they can just roll it over to the next. And that I feel like that's a comfortable place for people to be where they're spending money, but not too much, knowing that most likely they are buying a home soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we might differ on that, and I think that's okay. It's that time and cost, and just trying to balance all of the different pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle. So when you go into an install, what are some of the things that you do? I mean, obviously, we all know the basics of getting the furniture and getting it assembled, but I've watched some of your videos and you go next level in a lot of areas. So is there anything you don't do, and what are some of your favorites?
Okay, so that was several questions. Is
Yeah.
there anything we don't do? That list is shorter than the list of the things we do, so I'll start there. In general, we do not do plumbing and we do not do electrical and we do not do skilled trades. So we don't come with saws and we don't have I'm not going to the hardware store figuring out how many nails I need to build a deck. Like that's not what we do. We assemble furniture, which is different than building things or like refurnishing what am I saying? The floors, whatever you do to the floors.
Yes, refinishing the floors and
Yeah. So all of the renovation needs to be done when we get on site. And from there, we will assemble all of the furniture. But in addition to that, we have 100-point checklist that we go through that includes tech, safety, home maintenance, and guest readiness. And so diving deeper into those, we will do a full safety inspection and give that report to the owner. And that just helps them in case of liability and possibly for insurance reasons, and just brings awareness to the owner like, oh, geez, I didn't know I need pool depth markers. I didn't know I needed a gate to keep kids safe around a pool. I didn't know I needed a fire extinguisher at my grill, So we try to educate there with that safety. We also do tech. So we'll put the TVs in guest mode. We will hang their Wi-Fi cameras. We'll install their coded locks. We'll do all of the tech. If it's stay-fi, if it's noise monitoring, we will handle it so that they are truly ready when we leave. Um, After that, home maintenance will check all your doors and windows to make sure they open, close, lock, and latch without squeaking or scraping on the ground. We will check your water flow and temperature to make sure that it's in the appropriate ranges. We check all your major appliances. Things we find in general are that dryer vents are not hooked up appropriately or maybe missing altogether. We also check the fridge. Like they will be plugged in, but water and ice is not often connected. So anytime we can make those fixes, we will make those fixes for owners. Otherwise, we will get a handyman and help them out so that when a guest checks in, they're not going, how does the ice machine work? And the owner is like, I don't know. I've never been there. How does my ice machine work? We don't want that situation. So we try to prevent that.
yeah.
And then with the maintenance, we also, you've heard me talk about Loctite. More recently, I'm talking about curtain rod tape. And we really try to instill like practices that will prevent maintenance needs in the future for the owner. So we really do go above and beyond.
And that's some of that little stuff goes so far, and there's so many times that, well, before I, learned about you using Loctite that, my handyman, one of the things he does, he goes in each property for me and he's checking the chairs to make sure there's nothing loose and, checking door locks and different things like that to make sure none of those bolts came loose, and then you talked about not having to go to the hardware store. You also will create your own hardware if needed from what I saw today, creating your own screws if you need to.
Yeah, well, we were missing I don't know what it was, a 3-inch double headed screw. I'm handy, but like I'm more of a problem solver than a handyman. So
Yes.
let's go there. But we needed it and we called in for reinforcement. They told us what to go get. We went and got it. We built our own double-headed screw and we were able to save the dining table.
W
And that prevented the owner from having to return it because the part was missing, blah, blah, blah. So
Yep, and
um
that was the biggest thing, the saving grace, right? You do have to call the company, get the part, get it shipped, wait 7 days, and all of a sudden your house isn't ready for, pictures the following week because you weren't able to get that dining room put together. So that little stuff does go a long way.
Yeah, and a lot of that we take care of. We don't want to have to go back and forth. We're just like we see a problem, we're going to solve it. So,
Yeah.
that's why our list of what we do is so long and we're always adding to it, and the list of what we don't do is relatively short.
Yeah, yeah, and, some of the other things that obviously I've seen you do, hanging wallpaper, that has gotta be at the top of your list of your favorite thing to do, or, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, we get the job done. Yeah, we can hang wallpaper. We will also try to hire it out when it becomes like if it's more than a wall or two, we might try to find a local company. But we're also then vetting, watching, overseeing how it's going so that the owner isn't just flying blind. Um, I think we've all had contractors that reported they were finished and they did great work and look what I did, but they didn't show us what they did over here and how much of a mess that was. So we try to be the eyes and ears for the owners and report back. So if we can be that mediary that helps things and smooths it all over, we're happy to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the stuff that you do is so huge. I mean, I've closed on some houses recently with some investors, and I've had a few that never even saw the property in person, and then they sent a handyman there to install the door locks and to do a few things, and they don't know if everything is there. I mean, yes, they have a list and they have someone that's looking at it, but if you're a short term rental operator and you've never visited your own property, it is crucial to have someone like you be able to put your hands on every single thing and know what you're actually doing.
Exactly. And we communicate in real time on a living document, a big spreadsheet, and we will check off everything that gets there, when it gets there, the quantity that we saw. So if they ordered 15 sets of something and only 12 arrived, we make a note of that and we update it all day, every day, so that the owner can always go check it and see the progress that we're making. And it's a really efficient way to communicate without having to send 6,000 texts or Slack messages. It's all right there on one document.
Yeah, yeah. So how one of the questions that I have is, because I know you do have kids, is how do you balance the work life with the travel that you have going on? Because obviously, my wife and I think our kids and your kids are close to the same age. It it's a little bit tough sometimes.
It is tough. I will say that. I really started this business when my kids' parenting time changed. For most of their life, they were with me almost all of the time. And as they got older, they got more time with their dad. And so when they became week with him, week with me, week with him, week with me, that's how this 7-day plan started, because I didn't want to stay home and be by myself and be like, now what do I do? I don't have kids. What do I do?
Yeah,
So it's like, oh, yes, I will go install this property for you. I will help you out. And then it became clear this is a viable business. And then I made it so. But that's why we do it in 7 days, so that I can always get home and be with my kids and be their mom when it's my turn to do that.
yeah, and that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And I've seen I've seen them come with you on local closer jobs and help out if needed, and that's
Yeah.
always fun.
I wouldn't say they love the work, but they have been put to work plenty of times. And I have to do a better job as a mom resisting putting them to work when we go to our places to vacation. It's like they are not on duty. Don't use them. Like, let them play, even though they're 18 and 19 now.
Yep.
You know, I have to resist that. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife and I literally had this conversation on our way home from PCB the other day about going on our next trip and bringing our girls, and they're getting ready to be 17 and the other one's 19. So we're, not working, actually having a vacation where we're not actually working. I mean, of course, as a co-host, I'm gonna have some guest communication and some things that we got to do for that and handle some things, but not actually go to a property and spend 8 to 10 hours, building something new, right?
Right. Yeah. And what's funny is I am taking my kids to my Montana property for Christmas. And it's like every day I'm like, oh, they could help. No, they could help. No. Like, so I will probably end up bringing my team out like I should, like I tell everybody else to do, and
Yes.
have my team do a true install there, because we're going to do a whole design refresh in Montana and, yeah, make some big improvements.
Awesome, awesome, and that's one of your 3 that you own and you're leveling up?
Exactly. Yeah, always staying ahead of the Joneses.
And that's what we've been working on these past few weeks, and we got a few more coming up to help some owners that we co-host for level up their property and get it ready for 2025, because it is just more hyper competitive every single day as more and more savvy investors get in here and get into this space and understand what it takes to be successful. You gotta keep leveling up. So, I mean, I've seen some of your installs. The designers you're working with are amazing, and every single property is pretty much a super property. Is that what you're seeing for the most part?
Yeah, I would say that we are working with some of the best designers and some of the best properties, and it does make work really fun. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoy just basking in how awesome these properties are. And what I love about that is I know the guests will too. They'll come in and they'll ooh and they'll ah. And that's what we want as hosts. We want people to really enjoy their time in our spaces.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, these people are spending their hard-earned money to come on vacation at our homes, right? And
Right.
they don't wanna go to another house that's just like their house. They want an experience. They wanna have something that's gonna they're gonna remember it for the rest of their life and make those lifetime memories with their family. And having these these super properties like what you guys are putting together is such a it's just awesome. I just love watching it.
Well, we love the work. It's fun when you get a job that doesn't feel like work, right? When you just would do it because you love it.
Yep, yep. So if you're an install, typical day, waking up at 6 a.m. to get started on your day, how many hours are you actually installing? Are you sun up to sundown and beyond?
We really are. And that's such an interesting thing because we are all leaving our lives and our families for a week, and we are dedicating our entire week to our client. And I mean, we don't live in town, so we don't have to take our kids to school or pick them up from school, or we don't have an appointment like a lot of handymen might do or housekeepers might do that would also be available to do an install. There's nothing that really gums up our process, that like our social lives don't impede on this. We get up, we get to work, and we just keep working. And what we have in common is that the teams live and work on the property, so we just keep working until we get tired, and then we're like, okay, it's time for bed, I'm crashing, and then we get up and repeat it. I mean, often I start work in my pajamas, and then there comes a point where I'm like, okay, I should probably get dressed now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I get it. We've done quite a few of these installs helping some of our co-host clients, and it is. You're there for a short period of time, and there is no, "Oh, let's just take a night off and go out to a nice dinner." Occasionally you might get done a half a day early and you get to do that, but one of the things that I get all the time from the people at home, they're like, "Oh, you've been in Florida all week and enjoying the beach and the whole works." I'm like, "No, no, I didn't see the beach for 7 days. I saw the inside of this house, and we assembled furniture, and we put up wallpaper, and we did all that." And I'm assuming, yes, you get to soak up some views here and there, but I'm assuming it's pretty much the same for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we plan to be there 7 days, and occasionally about day 3, 4, I start looking around and I'm like, wow, we're really ahead of where we thought we would be right now. And then we start thinking, can we go out to dinner? This will be fun. And so, like recently, in a project we did in Hot Springs, Arkansas, we got done early, and I released one of the team to be able to go home a day early, and the three of us got to go to the bathhouse and just kind of experience what is this. It's so classic to Hot Springs, Arkansas. And it
Yes.
was a fun, exciting thing that we got to do as a team, but very individual. But it was fun, but it was definitely out of the norm. There are some projects that we are sprinting sun up to sun out down until we are leaving for the airport or driving off the property, and those are stressful ones.
Yep. 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 And I mean, some of them are a lot more detail or have a lot more furniture or whatever it may be. So it definitely, there's a lot that goes through it. So if my listeners wanted to book you to potentially do an install for them, how would they get a hold of you?
I'm all over social media. They should probably look at my Facebook page and just kind of see what we do and get an idea of that by all the videos we post there. But then if they DM me in the comments on Facebook or Instagram, that's great. I have a website, but it's embarrassing. I haven't looked at it in months, and I know that I have a broken link. So you shouldn't probably do that. But my email is launchedhost@gmail.com. And that's another good way to get a hold of me. But I mean, sound the alarm. I'll hear it. I'll come running and I'll find you.
Yep, I definitely see you all over social media. One last question. So, a lot of my viewers are co-hosts or getting into the co-hosting space, and they're taking over properties that need a design refresh, right? Eliminate pretty much everything that's in a house and bring in all new. Is that something that you would do if we had to, all new furniture basically starting over?
Yes, we do that. We've done that several times. And that tends to be what we start doing more in January, February, like deep into the winter.
Yep.
We do a lot of new properties now to get them online and in service before the end of the year. So we are onboarding as many clients as we can until the end of the year. But then starting January, February, we do a lot more design refreshes. And I do want to tell your co-hosts if they want to do it themselves, design refreshes are harder than and like starting from scratch. So if you are doing this by yourself, like call me and I want to give you a little bit of cues on how to do that. But it's much more difficult to pull a rug out from under a king bed and put a new rug down than it is to just lay a rug in an empty room and then build a king bed over the top. So you get cramped quarters, it's difficult. But I would love just to talk to some of your co-hosts and help them with the scope of work. Cause I think once we manage the scope of work, we can do a better job and we don't get in the weeds. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
And
will help you. I don't
and
want you to be stressed.
I agree. I mean, and the other part about it is when you're doing a design refresh, like you may not be replacing everything, and then it's how do you factor in what's currently there to make work with what you got to bring in and the hodgepodge that creates, and so working with a designer, working with a professional installer definitely is going to make a big difference. My wife and I, we do updates on every property we co-host for. We only want to co-host for super properties that can be highly successful, and if they're not there, we'll help them do that. And I've learned a ton by watching your videos and watching your lives on a Friday night on your final install or whatever it is that you've been doing. And I appreciate all that you do. I think it is really awesome. And there is a huge need in the industry for this. So yeah.
Well, I'm happy to help. I mean, I'm an educator at heart, so I'm happy to just keep teaching in this new format. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's been helpful for you because you're doing amazing. I'm impressed watching you as well. The things you do for your clients, I don't know, like you can't go wrong with you as a co-host. You go far above and beyond any other co-host I have seen.
Yep, I appreciate it, and I really appreciate you being on, and looking forward to seeing you again in person, hopefully at an install or, maybe at the next STR Wealth Conference, whatever it may be. But we will definitely get together again sometime soon, and I really thank you so much for coming on.
You're so welcome.
All right, guys, that is another episode of the Co-Host Coach. Please search Kim Fitzpatrick on Facebook. Reach out to her if you need help with your installs, and until next time, we'll see you then.